The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
The METUS Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
Guadalajara, Guadalajara. Roland, guess what?
You probably just got back from vacation.
No, I'm actually going to Mexico in 2 weeks.
And whereabouts?
Guadalajara. I'm going there to qualify a DSG member for train.
Nice.
For Guadalajara in Mexico.
Guadalajara.
And, so the deal is, I asked him at first, what he wants to co-teach first. So I asked him, so what sections of the city multi-class are you willing to teach? That would be teach. Okay.
Because I was ready to say.
You can tell my accent.
I didn't know if that was a
while.
food you were talking about or what.
That's why.
Yeah, so you're going down
when I
there.
say
All right,
sheet, I have to think about what I'm saying.
Are you landing in L.A. and driving?
I'm actually flying from Cincinnati to Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta to Guadalajara.
Oh, God. I've always wanted to go to Guadalajara.
You can't sing that.
I can't.
You have to have the accent.
The Spanish accent.
It's a special form of the tongue.
Yeah, roll it.
There you go.
All right,
so welcome.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show.
With Juan Cardona and
Roland Wager.
Yes, this topic this week is going to be on starting up a single zone versus a multi-zone system. And we're going to talk about different processes.
That sounds like a good topic, Juan.
So what are some of the things that we need to confirm before we even start up the system?
Oh, there's a lot of things. Where do we start? We want to stop on the piping side or the electrical side?
Well, I think we need to confirm proper installation first.
Sure.
Okay, so once we confirm the proper installation of the equipment, then we need to do proper piping, make sure that we don't exceed the piping length.
And where we find that information, we find it in our favorite spot, My Link Drive on the installation manual.
Correct. On the unit-specific
That's right.
installation manual.
I got that right.
All right, so after we do that, what's our next step? We need to confirm, once we measure the line set, okay, we pressure check and do what?
And after that, release it, and we do a triple evacuation after we've confirmed no leaks. Triple evacuation is very important. A couple reasons why. One, everyone says, it just kind of makes it go faster, and it's good to do, and that's not really the reason. One of the reasons we do that is we can freeze moisture. So applying a triple evacuation, if we did freeze moisture, if there was moisture in the pipe, bring that back to 0 PSI on your gauge, would thaw that out, and then we could repeat the process of boiling that moisture out and evacuating it. Triple evacuation, crucial.
Yeah, and so just turning on a vacuum pump for 30 minutes, is that good enough?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Triple
You're right.
evacuation.
Yes.
They're out there, they're watching, they're spying.
Yes, and you know what? Triple evacuation has been in the books since the very first refrigeration system was invented. So why has the industry stopped doing it?
When you're old enough, can you tell me what year
I can
that
remember.
was?
That was before 1976, I'll tell you.
That's right.
The reason why it's there is because, again, you said it, if we just run the vacuum pump, and the vacuum pump, it's a high CFM rated pump, you will freeze moisture in the system. What might also happen to the oil? I've heard that the oil will evaporate
Yeah, well,
at a
also,
very deep vacuum.
a low evacuation can cause the oil to boil. So it would act just like water. So, obviously there's a long extended time, but they're still, nevertheless, they got to be considered and thought of, all the time. They should be.
So after we have properly evacuated the system, then we calculate the charge, and that we could do that both ways. We're going to hear more about this in the future. Mm-hmm. We calculate the charge and we weigh it in.
Absolutely. Weigh it in. Make sure you put it in liquid like you're supposed to. It's one of the few and only time you're going to have the gauges on the system. And, additional charge or trim charge, however you want to call it. These are critical charge systems, so that weight additional charge is specific and extremely important.
And don't forget to open up the valves.
All the time.
You know, that's one of the things that installers tend to forget a lot.
And we're whispering because it's important.
Because it's a very serious matter.
It is serious. And I know for a fact that has come in as service calls. Nothing's working.
Yeah.
You know,
so
pull out that Allen's wrench.
Did you open up the
truck.
valves?
I
What
did.
valves?
The two valves, the correct valves.
Exactly.
That's right.
How many ports are there in the units?
Well, a minimum of 3.
And they are named common suction,
Okay.
common discharge,
Sure.
and vapor line at the service valve.
That's right.
All 3 of them. All right. So after we do the refrigerant charge and we're ready to start up the system, okay, we turn what on first?
Well, if the indoor unit does have its own service switch, and that's not just any service switch, that's an arcless 3-pole switch. You have to make sure that's turned on first. If you turn on the outdoor unit first, it's going to send a signal, and it's not going to receive anything. So you're probably going to get a fault code saying lack of communication.
Yeah, I mean, the indoor unit has to be powered on first,
Absolutely.
or else it's going to create a fault code. So what kind of wire we run? You know, on the MMP series is 14.3 with a ground,
That's correct.
except on the smart multi-branch box type.
That's going to be 16.3 with the ground.
Absolutely. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
Now, what voltage ranges are we looking for?
Well, S1 to S2 should be the same voltage as L1 and L2.
Sure.
Okay. S2 and S3 should be a fluctuating 12 to 24 volts. But you know, Roland, I've seen that number be lower sometimes, like 8. I've also seen it as high as 30.
I as well.
Right. And then that happens due to the incoming voltage because the DC voltage, the DC bus is dependent on incoming voltage.
That's right. So if you do see anything fluctuate in those ranges, you may see in the literature it says 10 or 12. But if you see it drop down to 8, maybe go up to 26, that's a lot better than it staying at 22 and not moving at all.
Right. And then, you know, again, once we power up the outdoor unit, that 24 volts DC signal is sent from the outdoor unit because that's where that comes from.
Sure. Yep.
And then what creates the fluctuation, and we're going to talk about this in a future podcast, what creates the fluctuation is once that indoor unit sees that 24 volts DC signal coming into the indoor board, then and only then it sends that 12 volts DC signal back to the outdoor unit, letting it know, I'm connected, I see you, let's run.
Hence, fluctuating. So what are the areas of voltage that the unit will work under as far as a range, high and low end of incoming voltage?
187 to 253.
And that's a pretty good spread of voltage, a lot different than the regular industry equipment. It's a lot more forgiveness there. And anyways, that's, must be checked. And as you said, S1, S2 compared to L1 and L2 coming in should be right about the same.
Yeah, and inverter systems, once that incoming voltage gets close to the bottom number, 187, or gets close to the high number, the 253, because in many cases I've seen 250.
I live in Florida.
And you see a lot of that.
245 is extremely common.
Yep.
Extremely.
But especially out in the country, in the middle of nowhere, where the voltages are spiked up because of the length of the wire.
Where is that? Where's
That's
the
in
middle
the middle of nowhere. That's
Is that
in
a
the middle of
town?
nowhere, United States.
I didn't know there was an
America.
extra state. Okay.
So you tend to see the higher voltages.
Yeah, you sure do.
So
Sure do.
what happens, inverter products will compensate for that. They will not allow the compressor to operate at full capacity because it's trying to keep it from overheating. So therefore it ramps it down, and then you get the complaint, I don't have enough cooling.
And another thing to take into consider is that if you have lower incoming voltage, you're going to have lower DC voltage. There's a range. As the incoming voltage goes up, your DC voltage goes up. So don't always go in there and expect to see, I'll just say 300 volts DC. Don't expect to see that all the time. If I am running 245 on incoming voltage, I'm going to see more than 300 volts DC.
Right.
So
we start things up. The system is running. And then we confirm proper operation in the cooling mode on the 1-to-1. We run it on test run, and we confirm it through Delta T.
Yeah, yep. This is old school. I'm looking for a 20 or 30 degree drop across the coil. Whatever your old school, you like a thermometer.
And the best thing to do in the multi-zone is to start one indoor unit at a time.
Yeah, best. I'm going to say must.
Yes. And make sure that the unit that is running is the one that is getting the cold air.
Yeah, you can have a lot of things that come into play. You could have cross piping, cross wiring. Let's say the house has 3 or 4 MHK2s. Who connected them? When did they connect them? Most important, what did they connect them to? So you could start up the living room, and all of a sudden the bedroom's nice and cool. So that's something else that's got to be verified as well.
So starting up on the multi-zone, one indoor unit at a time, you're confirming wiring and proper piping.
Absolutely.
Because if you're running unit 1 and then unit 2 is the one that's getting the cold refrigerant, what does that tell you?
Cross-piped.
Right.
Cross-pipe.
Or it could be cross-wiring as well.
And I think that's probably where I won't say people, I'll say that's probably where the most common mistake is, okay, we got a multi-head system in here, turn it on, put it in test run. Everything works perfect. It sure does. If it's cross-pipe, cross-wired, controllers going to the wrong unit, everything's running fine. Right. Next morning, you get a phone call. Not a good thing.
Right.
Yep.
And one thing that you could use, and we mentioned this in a previous podcast, maintenance tool. Instead of having to use thermometers and clamp on thermometers, we can connect maintenance tool to the system and look at proper the temperatures of the pipes at the indoor coils, outdoor coils, the room temperatures, and that's how we check the delta T's, and the temperatures and the pressures on some units.
And that gives you the ability to actually see nice graphics, well-controlled, formulated information, and you can see it from one point. You can set yourself up nice at the condenser, nice and comfortable, put your laptop into it, and check that information.
Right. So the system is running. We've confirmed it with delta T. We're getting our 20 to 30 degree temperature differential across the return and the supply on the cooling mode. And like you mentioned, if it was on heating mode, we need to look for 35 degrees or higher, delta rise, delta T. And then once that operation is confirmed, the job has been properly started.
And depending on the motors, that's really, whatever area it is, whatever the temperature is outside. Probably if it's 60 degrees outside, you probably have the luxury of starting to need the mode.
Right.
So, yep.
Yeah, like in Florida, it's very rare that you would start it up in heating mode.
Oh, yeah. When it gets down to 60.
Like you would in my neck of the woods.
It gets down to 60 down there, we're all staying inside.
Right.
Cold front coming in.
That's right.
Grab out the winter jackets.
So, every time the temperature drops into the 50s, I'm calling my sister and asking her, so have you taken out your jackets and your sweaters out of the drawers and all that? You're ready for winter.
And need another car of wood.
Exactly. So... Well, yeah, this is a very good topic, and it's one that we need everyone to be aware of, the proper startup process in the system. It's not just a matter of flipping a switch and turning it on. So to summarize...
make sure that you take your time, you do the proper steps as far as your pressure checking, your triple evacuation, confirm your wiring. Also, too, is that when you start up a multi-head system, one at a time, whatever order you choose, okay, and make sure they're connected correctly, and you have proper air delta T, air temperature drop across the coil in the cooling mode, temperature rise in the heating mode.
Where am I going in 2 weeks? Guadalajara.
Guadalajara. Thank you very much.
Adios, baby.
Hey.